Bam.
This is John Krotec, and you were watching the Break It Down show here with my buddy Pete Turner. Thanks for being
That's
here.
right, man.
Yeah.
We go back a long way, and a long way now, John. I mean, quite a long ways.
Almost a decade, brother.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, pre-pandemic got nothing on us. We were before that. So, one, I appreciate you out there still hustling, still doing things. I appreciate you when you hired me to help you with your show, and that was, for me at that time, it made a difference that I had a little bit. And we didn't work on big margins or nothing, but that little bit of money was helping me out and kept me going in a positive direction, and in some ways literally saved my life, because you can only take so many hits financially and professionally before you're like, I'm out of hits, it's time to quit. And I was in that zone,
So true. But Pete, honestly, brother, but you were helping me too, because I had just, been through that traumatic brain injury, and I was trying to reevaluate my own life, and you helped me to launch Straight Out of Combat Radio, which was really a very successful podcast show. People are still listening to it. And you taught me so much about editing and about interviewing and the technical aspect behind the scenes type of stuff that podcasters do. So you are a high value to me as well. And I thank you for that. And here we are, like you said.
We are full of thanks. So, and I appreciate you. You appreciate me, and that's one of the cool things about what we do. You're always thinking, always moving, always trying to reinvent. And since I've met you, you've like, here's what I think is next. Here's what I think is next. And it seems like you've kind of come all the way down to this conclusion where you're at now, talking about new masculinity or neo masculinity, and this whole concept. We've tried a lot of social things, right? And this is a good thing. Like, societies need to grow, they need to evolve. Culture has to, do its job to kind of decide where we're going. And it does seem like we're in a new time where we look around and go, hey, a lot of the stuff we said that we thought we liked, turns out doesn't work. And so we're kind of resetting, and the pendulum always swings. And so I wanted to get your thoughts on this neo-masculinity, and let's talk about your website and the tools therein. But let's just kick that off and tell us about neo-masculinity, and what did you figure out when you dove deep?
Well, thanks, Pete. I appreciate the question, man. What caught my eye a couple of years ago, and the guys that I hang out with, Vietnam veteran and some of the same people was this whole concept of toxic masculinity and what it actually meant. And when we started to do research, the social definition was a man cannot be masculine unless he accepts, quote unquote, changing social norms. In other words, you're not a real man unless you accept something that is popular at the moment. And it might not even be true, but you have to believe in a lie to be a man. So what we did is we took it a step further in this digital age. We started to look at information. And what we determined is that the largest PSYOP operation in the history of humankind has been going on for quite a while. Humans all over the planet, especially that are connected to digital tools, have been bombarded with massive amounts of information, a lot of information. And we determined that there's 6 types of information. There's probably more when you add intuition into it, but you have reliable information, and then you have derivatives of misinformation and disinformation and noisy information, which is social media platforms, malinformation, and now the advent of artificial intelligence information. And they're disrupting families. They're disrupting and confusing and creating chaos with our intuition, which is a human trait. They are destroying critical thinking, logic, and reason.
Who is the they, and what is the goal of the they?
Well, we've determined there's a lot of different sources. We're not going to go into conspiracy theories. We're only going to go into what we see. And when I take the spectrum of media outlets, mainstream news media and social media, and you start to connect the dots on how they're funded and financed, we have there's radicals on both sides of the spectrum, let's say.
Sure,
and
for sure.
The thing that, we've heard our entire lives, a house divided will not stand. So what we believe is going on, without throwing politics into it, we believe it is a classic West versus East psyop. But at a massive level. And if we can disrupt families, which is the core, our children are the future. If we can disrupt families and neuter men, then it's open season for anybody to manipulate and twist the truth and get you to believe in narratives that don't add up. So, the future of our humanity is determined by whether or not our children, and as parents, we need to protect them. There's not saber-toothed tigers or mastodons. It's now information. They need to be able to determine truth from lies. They need to be able to separate reality from fantasy, fact from fiction. And if the children cannot do those, what we used to call critical thinking, scientific method, if they can't practice those kinds of things, we are totally in deep doo-doo. And that's putting it mildly. Create disharmony between family members, people in a community, people in a country, and you are ripe for the house divided will not stand type of scenario. You and me were raised on 3 television news stations, right? We always assumed we were getting the news. Now there's 600 outlets worldwide, and it takes me about 45 seconds to listen to a narrative, and you can automatically tell where they're coming from. And if you want to take it even deeper, follow the money. Research how those programs and those shows and those platforms are funded. And then you'll see that there are some interesting manipulators out there that are disrupting families and critical thought processes all over the planet. I mean, but the difference between everybody's talking about it, Pete, come on, I don't want to say spook, but you operated. You operate in their circle, so you know how those things work.
Yeah. And absolutely. I mean, let me just jump in here. When you talk about information operations, you're trying to use, to create an affect, like try to get an emotional response to the information you put out, getting, the Iraqis to believe in their own government, whatever it's going to be, getting troops to be scared about the upcoming fight against your force. There's all kinds of history of what psyops do. And then for sure, that's more in the black arts, like we're spying like I do, or that for sure. Like you want to flood the space with information, even if it's to create doubt, if we're going the wrong direction. I know right now there is a conversation about this horrible attack in Colorado. And is the perpetrator of the attack, is he a false flag from Israel? Is he not even really the right person? Is he misidentified? Is he an Egyptian national? Is he allowed to be here illegally? Or is he here? You can find stories about every aspect of this, and most of it is bullshit, right? And so one thing I've done for a long time, it's not that Pete's better than anybody else, just I don't watch the news because it's the bullshit. And we know for a fact that news editors now look for what will get clicks. Not all news is like this, but very much so, that if you can get engagement, and we know that rage engagement sells things, it draws eyes. And so now you're selling ads based upon rage. And so you spin the narrative you want. I know right now for sure, if I use Bing, it's my search engine. And if I go into their news part of the portal, the MSN side of things, it all leans heavily left. And it's apparent right away that you do that. I don't care. There's left-leaning people, go read that news. And if I want to, I can go to other news portals and I can get the right side, especially around Fox News. And I'll get told something that I want to believe. And it'll be different sides of the same story, sometimes completely fabricated, sometimes truth, because a lot of things have two sides, but that happens all the time. So when I watch things, I'll just watch the White House press secretary's briefing. I know that the White House press secretary only tells me what that team wants me to hear, right? I get that. You don't have to tell me that person's lying. They all lie. That's their job, right? But I watch the person talking and I hear the words they say out of their mouth, and hopefully that's all legitimate, because even that's becoming a questionable thing. But the other day when Robert Kennedy Jr., the Secretary of Health, was talking, I want to hear what he says. I don't want to hear what anybody else has to say about what he says, because then I can go back and I can grab experts and I can say, what do you think about this? And guess what? They're going to disagree. So we are all pushing through this mud of disagreement. I want to say one more thing about what you're talking about with masculinity. All of this is an exchange of power. Whether it's equality or equity or anything along those lines. Somebody wants more power than the other person has, whether they perceive to have it or they don't have it. That's all this is about. And so, like, I don't feel very powerful. I don't try to be very powerful. I try to be my person and not worry about these things. And so really, most of that is unimportant to me. If I make enough money to survive, I'm good. And I'll go from there. And I do my best to not step on people's toes. But some people, they want more, or they've been, we all have to fight a dragon, John, and kill the dragon. And it's not easy, right? We all have to do these things. And so if you see someone else who's already defeated their dragon and they're doing better than you, we tend to want to take that person and bring them back to the pack, because we don't like success as a group, and we want to see people be miserable with us. And I'm not going to, at my best, I'm not going to play that game.
You know, and it is a game. Misery loves company. It's another thing that we've heard of. But the things that you just said and touched upon, are true. Because what's interesting with this, even though we're in this kind of setup, is that I've met you personally and we have chatted together about issues. So I could, without a doubt, say the things that Pete Turner will tell you are true. He can be trusted. And I know that when I was, as a kid coming along in 7th grade science class, I was thinking about that class the other day, where it's the first time that I really picked up on scientific method, what it really meant. Here I am, a 7th grader, being taught the scientific method and, experimentation and finding out things for yourself. And people don't do that now. We call it intellectual laziness. They go online and, some of the very popular clickbaits and things like that, people are getting their news. It's all totally corrupted and not true. And some of these platforms have even censored and canceled me. I'm not going to name any because it doesn't matter. So right. I know that true information, reliable information, is not getting out there to some of my audiences. I'm not going to blame it on an administration. I'm not going to blame it on a specific country. All I can tell you is that cancellations and, what was it called? Cancel culture. Somebody says something we don't believe or doesn't follow our popular narrative, then I don't want anything to do with you. I mean, I'm witnessing, we're all witnessing people that we've had great respect for our entire lives saying things that are just not true. One of my favorite bands from Ireland who sang the song Sunday, Bloody Sunday, their front man just told a blatant lie. A guy that he was like, rock and roll king. So, and he's just one of many. We're not going to get into that. But what we've added, not only.
Well, we can get into a little bit because YouTube, my favorite band, and I watched Bono on Joe Rogan.
Okay,
and
you said it.
Yeah, no, I don't mind saying it because it's true, right? So Bono got things wrong about AIDS. He also he's very good at being in the middle, and I believe in all that stuff and trying to figure it out. Does he lean left? Yeah, that's fine though. We want our artists to lean left. They're kind of brutal when they lean.
That's
to the right.
What creative fundamental people do. So yeah.
Right. But he talked about the death of all these people. Here's the reality of USAID. And again, there's going to be two sides to this truth as well. I have seen USAID. I have seen NGOs that work for USAID or Department of State. I have seen Department of State people. The second I came across any of these three entities, NGOs that work for these folks, USAID or State Department, the second I encountered them, I knew that they were destabilizing the area. They would tell you all kinds of things. They had wonderful beards and had thoughts and beliefs. But when I would go back in their trail doing what I do, because the boss wants to know, John, the boss wants to know. So I look over the mountain and I'm like, yeah, all those people he's teaching how to weave carpets, two of them are dead, and when the facts start to come out, none of it matches what they brief. And so when Bono says that, I'm sure that's the information he got. And maybe there is some validation to that, but it's not because Donald Trump and his administration turned off that supply. It's because they've always been flawed. They've always made mistakes. They've always sold these narratives. And then it's easy to understand. And this will get to your point here. It's easy to understand how this works. You live in the gorgeous, lovely Shenandoah Valley, right? If a NGO from China showed up and started engaging with everybody's wives and teaching them anything, how to weave carpets and undermine the authority of their husband in the house, right? Especially now you're talking about a really Shenandoah Valley is gorgeous and you don't have to have all these things. But let's say that men control the society like they do in Afghanistan. And to keep their families safe, they have to say, stay in this lane. You get outside of this lane, you draw attention, you get us all killed, right? So these guys, with these Americans without any license, go and engage these wives. They go into the Shenandoah Valley. They start saying, hey, here's how you can become independent. Hey, you don't have to have your husband beat you. Hey, 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 hey. And all of a sudden, there's this wake of damage. Beat up women, dead women, people that aren't making money selling carpets because no one wants to buy them. But that dude who says, hey, I trained 150 women on how to weave rug. By the way, who the fuck wants to weave a rug? You know, like, did they ask them that, or did they force them to do that because they had to succeed, right? And so very, very, very often these programs that they come up with are flawed, are failed, and the main thing that they do is transfer money from one part of the power structure to another. And I don't want to get conspiratorial, but that's a fact. They use it to transfer money from A to B, and that can be for any kind of intent, nefarious or good. But that is what happens with us. So when Bono says all these people died, you know what? As much as I love Bono and as much as he's great and he's solved a lot of problems or reduced the damage, he's not right in this case. He's mad at President Trump. Get to be that. But you can't show me the 300,000 bodies. And if you do, let's go look at the whole thing. And I'm going to show you more bodies because it just doesn't work reliably when we deal in that kind of money transferring, money laundering way.
No, you're totally correct, Pete. You know, when you even look at the Joe Rogan interview, and Bono says right off the bat that this hasn't been proven. And then he goes on to say a fact that he believes. And, you know, a part of a practice that I've been doing, not to be reactionary or less reactionary, is I remember a scene in The Wizard of Oz right before the Scarecrow does his dance, right? And Dorothy, she asked the Scarecrow, well, what would you do if you actually had a brain? And I was thinking, I would use it and I would think. So when I see things or I hear things like that, and so many people that I admire have just said the most ridiculous things that can't be backed up by facts, I go back to that Wizard of Oz and I would like to be Dorothy. Well, not really, but I would like to be Dorothy and I would like to ask Bono, hey, what would you do if you actually had a brain? And what I'm implying is, well, certainly I would use it. And all I'm saying is, before we say anything that we know may or may not, anything, even if it's truthful, you better be able to back it up. Right, one thing that we've added with this analysis, we call it the Human Information Sniff Test. It's in the little booklet for $2.99. But one thing that we've added to our analysis of information is we've added a gender role component, not a gender identity component. That's something entirely different. But we've actually researched gender roles throughout history, and we've taken these archetypes, what femininity stood for, and it's not to say that women are not protective. Oh my gosh, and protective in such a way is normally a man's role. But we just took a look at them, and we're hoping to empower not just men with what we're delving into in information analysis, but women too. Women, and you know, the whole battle of the sexes hoax that we believed coming along for decades it's a hoax. It's a hoax perpetrated by the people that put that out. It's always a battle of the sexes. Nonsense. We have to have a collaboration of the sexes. If we can start thinking collaborative, and you talk about collaboration all the time, Pete, if we start infusing the concept of collaboration into the male-female model, then we can go to great lengths at actually empowering people and helping families. But I don't want to demean anybody, denigrate anybody, accuse anybody, be disrespectful. Everybody's entitled to their own point of view. But what do they say about opinions? You know, and I'm not going to get there, but most of what I hear out there is an opinion based on a narrative or supposition that they haven't fully researched. Because I would think Bono, with as talented as he is, if he had actually investigated the 300,000 people dead hoax, he might not have even talked about that kind of stuff, because I truly believe that honorable people, virtuous men, and we can talk about that, will tell the truth. When you compromise your integrity, which is what he did, like you said, it's when a man compromises his integrity, he loses all credibility. Now, he can get it back if he can come back later on and say, you know what, Pete, if I told you a lie on your show, and I'm sorry I did that. I didn't mean to mislead you or mislead your listening audience. You got a lot of listeners, but you can redeem yourself with honesty. I had it wrong. We didn't. So what we've done is we've created this return to critical thinking, return to using your intuition, collaborating with women, and giving you the ability and the tools to be able to analyze information in a slow and methodical way that can allow you to empower yourself, but also to live by the honor that men need to have. Once that honor's been broken and a man's been emasculated, it's said to be toxic, then you've gone to great lengths to put doubt in the minds of what his role actually is. Now, I know it sounds deep. It's not that deep. All I'm saying really is use your gray matter. Use your brain. It's the most magnificent tool in the human arsenal, the use of your brain. And right now, there's a lot of people not using their brains. And it's evident. The more aware you become, the more we see it. And people that I still love and cherish have made some of the most ridiculous claims in my own circle. It's like you can't even talk to them because they're so angry and they're so corrupted in their mindset. It's sad. It's really sad, but we hope to reverse that.
It's funny. I can say these words and they'll be true because, I do my best to be pretty honest. President Trump is not my cup of tea. I don't care for the man, right? I can say that. And then I'll say something legitimate, like I'm in an email group with some very well-credentialed people. Some of them have ambassador in front of their names. And these very credentialed people will say, I think President Trump is a Russian asset. Now, in this group, I can look around and go, I've run assets. He's not an asset. I mean, maybe I'm wrong about that. But they are so convinced from this repeated narrative that there's no way that they think anything else is true. And so I'll take my time to try to take it down back. Listen, if he is an asset, he's not a very good one. He's going to do what he wants to do. And then I'll throw in some cagey things like, let us not forget, and then all that kind of thing. But these are highly credentialed, very, very relevant people in the foreign policy world. And I'm not trying to knock them because there's things that I believe that are wrong too. I just know it. I don't know what they are because I'm too much of an arrogant dick to admit when I'm wrong, right? But he's not an asset. He's not a Russian asset. He's just not. Is he trying to reduce the harm that's happening in the world? Yeah. Does he get to because he's elected president? Yes. And whether I like him or not, he gets to do this. He gets to hire who he wants. He gets to put him in front of Congress. They can say yes, no. And that's just the deal, like doesn't mean, but that will turn into, oh, I'm a Trumper. But I'm not. I just started this whole thing by saying I'm not against people that like Trump. I'm not against people that hate Trump. I just have better things to worry about than who the president is, because what am I going to do about it? Like if any president called me and said, Pete, I want your help in a way that I could help, I'm going to say yes, because the boss needs my help. Doesn't matter to me. And for whatever reason, that position to say, hey, look, the Russian agent asset thing, it's just not true. And if it is true, where are you getting that from? Oh, well, he once did a deal with Putin. Yeah, he does deals all the time with all kinds of international people. That doesn't make him an asset. That would make him an asset of the governor of New York. It would make him an asset of and all these international organizations he's done deals with. So we can't get so wound up in our side's narrative that we can't even consider the other side's narrative. It's not comfortable to do, but that is our responsibility as a nation.
Everything you said is true. And, he's not my cup of tea either. The personality is very abrasive, but the reality is I don't have any proof either way. And I would be just like you. If you're an ambassador and you say he's a Russian asset, tell me how you know that. Show me the bank accounts. Show me. I wouldn't even want to go to bank accounts connected to foreign nationals. We won't go there because it's irrelevant. It doesn't matter. But you know what? You can never underestimate the value of an initial perception. Like if you came to me and you said, John, Trump's a Russian asset. And I go, I don't know, man. Something, by now you would think after all of his years in business or in politics that somebody would come up with some proof, right? That that's true. Yeah. And they tried with a computer that they said never existed, but it did. Right. So anyhow, so that, all we're saying. Thank you, Richard. I just saw a comment. Richard is the man. Yeah. He's doing some great things with people, and we love him.
Yeah, we sure do.
Yeah, and so that's all we're saying is stay alert, stay alive. That's what my drill sergeant used to say.
Stay alert, stay alive.
Stay alert, stay alive. But check your resources. Yeah. Give it the old human intuition sniff test. Does that sound right to you? That one sex
and if it's
if
it's too sweet, if it feels too good, he's a Russian asset. Ooh, that tastes good. You're probably getting played. There's, I don't know if you know, you must know.
Yeah.
You must know Boone Cutler. Boone's writing some stuff. And with a bad, I'm going to say a bad word now. General Flynn. I've said a bad word. And so probably take this video and make it unmonetizable. Who cares about that? Because I'm just going to be honest. He's working with General Flynn, writing their second book. I think their first book's up here somewhere on my shelf. Anyhow, that's not important. But they're talking more about how information moves and how do you take down larger networks. And this is all just open source stuff, but they're just putting it into one big guide, and so that you can look at your organization and see what's being done to you or do something counter, and it's a real interesting take on with someone like General Flynn who gets taken down. Let's just say that he's innocent in this case, okay, and not a Russian asset, which probably what happened. He probably not a Russian asset. But look at what happened. They destroyed that man's name. It is the same organizations, and we'll just use the named organizations that are involved in these things. You mentioned the laptop that 51 people like me said, this is absolutely okay. Well, then there's a cost for that, and they're all getting it. I've had Mark Polymeris on my show. I think that's how you say his name. It's Greek. It's got a lot of letters, but he's one of the guys that signed that thing. It doesn't matter to me why he did it or what he did, but there's a cost for that. You came out, you said something against the boss, and then if it wasn't true, you lose your job. The Vindeman brothers, guess what? They worked together. They went against the boss. You don't get to keep your job. They still were colonels. They got to retire, but they were done in the military, right? That's just a fact. And if you did that I'm going to have Stanley McChrystal on the show soon, and he hit the wrong way with President Obama. Guess what? Lost his job. He retired.
It was a Rolling Stone article or something like that. Yeah.
Right. So these things happen, right? And people get things right. They get it wrong. They go against the machine. All of these things happen. And so what you're talking about, I think, is to say, hey, quiet your life down a little bit. Rely on your intuition. Inform yourself through multiple sources, I guess. What are some other hallmarks of what people should do? Because this stuff we're using some specific examples. I promise you. So when I wrote that email to this group of people, very credentialed people, but I'm the only spy in that group, at least that I know of. And one of my friends in that group said, you're probably right. He's probably not a Russian asset, but he is an asset for himself. And I cannot disagree with that. I'm sure Donald Trump will find a way to make deals and enrich himself as he does, as people in Congress do too. But this is part of the thing with President Trump is you can't trust him to reliably do the right thing, even at his own expense. There are times when he does this, I'm sure, but he will absolutely make a deal that will improve his condition. They will absolutely tell their version of the story. He'll say, I'll get this thing fixed in one day, and then he doesn't. And then he'll act like he did. He'll blame everybody else for his problem. All of these things are true about him, right? But he's not a Russian asset. And so how do we deal? What are some hallmarks of the things that we need to look out for? And what are some of the steps that we can take to kind of retrain our minds to get away from this delicious, snacky, good bullshit that we hear all the time?
Great question. And, we interviewed General Flynn on Straight Outta Combat Radio. In fact, you're the one that edited the interview. And that guy, I agree with you. He's not a Russian asset. Even, through the conversation, but even there's markers that you can pick up on. That guy's no more a Russian asset than I'm a Chinese asset. Not true. But I always, I'm going to make a shameless plug for The Art of War by Sun Tzu. It's a very, very interesting read, been around 2,000 plus years. We have to realize that we are in a psyop when it comes to information. And I think that those things, being aware of strategies that people will use, is extremely important. And I also like the 36 stratagems. So Art of War, 36 stratagems, really some good base foundational concepts to have locked in your head. And just stay up on what's going on. Read. Don't take what you hear or see in mainstream media, news outlets, or on social media as the gospel truth. I mean, because it isn't. We just made the example of Bono. I also there's a book out there called The Game of Gods by Carl, and I'm giving shameless plugs here. I really want to talk about my business, but these are important books. You asked the question, but The Game of Gods by Carl Teicherib, I think that's how you say it. Excellent book. Gives you a lot of historical background on cultural wars and how things shift and spiritual things and religion, but that's a good book. I also like, this sounds kind of crazy, but written in 1958 by a guy by the name of Manning Johnson. The book is called Color, Communism, and Common Sense. And Manning Johnson was a Black American who was a member of the American Communist Party for over a decade. And his book is chilling because everything that we read or that I've read in that book has been coming true. We see methodologies and we see things happening when it comes to race that is all meant to destroy culture. So that I would say, to answer your question without going too crazy on this coffee, is just read and don't believe everything you read. I also like, The Devil's Chessboard, which is basically a book on our country. Doesn't mean that I'm un-American for reading it, but it gives you how the CIA was set up and even what the CIA did after World War II and why some countries might hate America. It just gives you some good background. And then more recently, this is a shameless plug, but this book, Super Bloom, you need to get this guy on your show. Nicholas Carr. And the subtitle is How Technologies of Connection Have Torn Us Apart. Now, I'm only about halfway through it. I just got it. But it is absolutely fascinating how social media platforms have done the exact opposite of what the creators intended to do. And I'm not going to give away the book. All I'm going to say is this. In a time of human history, with the knowledge that we have and the intelligence that we have, we're landing rockets and doing all kinds of cool things.
It's amazing. Yeah.
It's amazing how far apart we truly are. And there's a reason for that. And I'm not going to go into deep mud and conspiracy, but I just say read as much as you can. You're also seeing mass migration off of some of these platforms, because when you get on a platform and you're angry within 3 minutes, it's not healthy for you. When you get on a news channel, whether it be CNN or Fox or the Five or the View, and you're angry within 5 minutes, that's not healthy for a human being. So we're being bombarded with all these things that are making us angrier and angrier. I mean, who throws gasoline on an elderly Jewish person and sets them on fire in the 21st century?
Yeah.
It's like Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. That should not be happening.
How many times does the Minister of Health from Hamas have to lie to us about who killed whom? And it's like, before we reject, as soon as you see that source, and a lot of times they don't even put the source up there anymore. So now there's no source when these things happen. And so we know the Minister of Health is going to give us their spin on what happened. And then Israel's going, we weren't even in the area. And then you look into the video evidence and all of a sudden you're like, they weren't there, and so there's a lot of that. There's a lot of this eruption of anti-Semitism. This doesn't give Israel a pass. Israel's done a lot of shitty things in its relationships with Palestine.
Absolutely, they have.
They didn't start this last war. All Hamas had to do was say, we surrender unconditionally, and then all the fighting would stop. The hostages would be returned, and all that suffering would end. But they have fight in them, and their charter is to destroy Israel. So Israel gets to believe them. Just like if Al Qaeda would try to destroy us and continue to try to do that, we continue to kill the fuck out of those guys. And we kill a lot of innocent people in the process. So these things all go together, and that the willingness of people to jump on the anti-Semitism train it's crazy, because that's not in any way part of the solution. I don't know what happens with Palestine. I talked to a lot of smart people about it. I get all different opinions on what's supposed to happen. Nobody knows the answer, but Israel gets to say, we're gonna tear some things apart until we're satisfied, because we're tired of fighting this thing for decades.
Well, you raise a good point, Pete, because a friend of mine, one of our military buddies, sent me a copy of the report that was done about the October 7th attack. And I didn't even finish it. It was so barbaric in its brutality that they've even said that this kind of barbarity has only happened half a dozen times in world history, in human history. Yeah. And what those terrorists did to babies, teenage girls, teenage boys, innocent concert goers, women being split in two like wishbones, the elderly being set on fire, whole rooms of people being massacred. If you mentioned the Shenandoah Valley. Let me tell you something. If the next Valley's redneck army came over here, next Valley, we're brothers and sisters in the same valleys, but if they came over here and did what those Hamas terrorists did to my neighbors, I can tell you right now, I would pony up, and we would get together our own redneck army, and we would obliterate them. So I'm totally, it's an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. And I am with you that I believe that somebody wants to end it. If you support Hamas, and these people that do, and I'm probably going to get kicked in the rear for saying that, you're not on a good side, I can tell you, especially in light of the guy burning innocent people at a peaceful protest or a peaceful demonstration for hostages. And who knows what's going on with. I know we've digressed, but I guess the point about this conversation is, don't believe everything you hear. Just use your intuition. There's a reason why they're leveling Gaza. Those Israelis are sick of it. And that attack report, get yourself a copy of it, and you answer me if the IDF is justified or not. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah. And again, we can get off that topic here in a second, but the truth of all of it is this: they are not going to stop. They say that, and by they, I mean right now, I mean Hamas. They're not going to stop. And so if they're not going to stop, Israel gets to believe them, and Israel gets to protect its interests. And they've stepped away from, pens on the table, ready to sign historic accords. They've walked away from a nation over and over again. They walked away from the last peace deal. They don't want peace. So until they do, and everything has been tried, I guess there's going to be, and I hate atrocity. I hate all these people having to die. I don't want to see.
Well, you've been in it, so
I've been in it. I know what it does. And here's the thing: is like, we count these numbers like they're nothing, but every one of those families who's damaged now, who's lost someone, people don't just die; they lose their legs, they lose the ability to live a full and complete life. Women get exploited in all kinds of horrible ways. They die at accelerated rates after war. And not just because of exposure to chemicals, exposure to humanity. And so this is a horrible thing for both of these fights, because they're not going to get over this. Most of these people will never get over it. And I don't know what you do about that. But let's get back to
everybody. We always digress. You and I are always talking about deep subjects, but yes, we take one day at a time, but right. Honestly, the future of our humanity is whether or not, we said this earlier, whether or not our children can separate truth from lies, reality from fantasy. And we as parents, we need to protect our children from threats. And also women, we need to protect our families. The men and the women need to work together. So what we want to do, and some of the things that we put together. There's a small visit neomasculinity.solutions. You got it up there. Thanks, Pete, for that. I appreciate your time to have me here. But also, look at the Sentinel Handbook. It's $2.95. It's a PDF. We've written it so an 8th grader can understand it, not to disrespect anybody. It's in 9 languages. So, I know that you speak one of them. So look at that. But we're also, I've got a couple of talks about male leadership and the second law of thermodynamics and what leadership is all about. If you want to put me on a stage in front of your organization, your team, management team, whatever you want to do, we can motivate people. We can inspire people to be the best they can be, whether or not they belong to a small team or a large team. So there's also that on the website, more information about me as a speaker. And then we're working on the Brain Freeze mini course, which will be out. It's an introduction to the larger course. The mini course is called Brain Freeze, the breaking of the ice on critical thinking. And then the Brannery, which is going to have the 4 silos with 4 different accredited curriculums. We teach brains, not grains. Those are going to be a reignition of critical thinking, an empowerment of masculinity and femininity, and actual tools that can be used that you can learn from in a curriculum that can help you to improve your lives and the lives of those around you. The world right now, Pete, as we pointed out with some of these devastating things that are taking place, we need to step up, guys. We need to step up. And the old adage, reach down and grab them. We need to be men. We're not toxic. Toxicity is the last thing. A true warrior raises the spear as a last resort. Real men will do everything they can do to avoid that. The person that's quick on the draw with a knife or a sword, the guy is overreactive. Heck, he might take somebody out that didn't deserve to be taken out. Right. We need to be smarter men. We need to return to logic and reason and thinking before we react and support and say stupid things like 300,000 people are dead when we have no evidence whatsoever. Bono, if you're listening, come on, brother, you're better than that. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, and I've got a 7-day trial for Apple TV because I wanted to see his movie, right? And I love Bono. But here's the thing, you're right. Like that when he said that, he said so many great things in that Joe Rogan thing that are much more important than that one thing. But when you get that part wrong, or you don't have the evidence to back it up, like let's say it is kind of true, right? If I sat down with Bono, I'd be like, hey man, let's work on this thing. Let's figure it out. Because too many of the times we go to help someplace and we get it wrong. And us dudes, if we're going to go do dude things, we got to stand up and say, that didn't work and it's on me. We have out here in our desert, we have this like futuristic looking house of mirrors on the desert floor. And it shoots mirrored heat up to like the central boiling point where it heats oil. And it is an energy machine, all solar, right? Didn't work. It's going to be torn down 15 years ahead of schedule, offline. And instead of people saying, man, we got to get this solar thing right, people are getting upset and denying that happened. This thing incinerated, John, 60,000 birds.
Wow.
60.
I didn't know about that. That's the first time I've ever heard about this. One of your listeners is asking a great question. Brad, thanks for the question, Brad. Yes, we remember that.
By the way,
incident,
loosely transliterated, Tariq Aziz means road sign in Arabic. So there you go. Road sign says the compromising of our integrity, the compromising of our honesty, right? Of our word, of our character. Very difficult to get back. We've seen this a lot in the news where they are willing to say things like mostly peaceful protest or the whole mostly good people hoax thing with Donald Trump and everything, right? All of these things. And so we've stopped believing the news. I watched, and I'm being hard on the main news, and it's primarily liberal people because guess what? They're not good at diversity either. So David Muir, there was a storm coming into Texas, and he's like, they've got morgues there. They're getting ready to pick up the bodies. And it's like, okay, you're selling fear. You're selling horror. Did people die during this giant storm in the giant part of Texas? Yeah, for sure. Right. But more people die in Chicago in a storm almost every single time because there's old people and it's hard to get to all of them. But he was selling this, acting this part out, and it was disgusting. It was the last time I ever watched his news because I don't want to be sold something. And I no longer will trust David Muir. And here's a guy that I'm supposed to trust. America's supposed to trust David Muir. And he used that license in a way that, at least for me, said, hey, that's enough. I'm not gonna watch your news anymore. So we all have a responsibility. If we're gonna be dudes, if we're gonna, use our masculinity to our advantage, we do owe it to be modern dudes who understand how to be affectionate towards our kids. Like my dad was not like the guy who's like, Pete, I love you. And I'm like, he's going to hit me.
Wow, we were brothers from different mothers, but yeah.
Yeah. And so I don't want to be that guy either, right? So the whatever masculinity is, it gets to be a good thing. It's good that we're taller and can grab things. In my life, I've got a special someone, and we talk about the big world, little world. And the big world, I'm like, what do you mean you can't use that space? I'm just going to, don't look, I'm using it. And then the little person goes, oh, I didn't know that was up there, and then the little world's like, don't you see this thing? And I'm like, no, that's way on the ground. I'm way up here. Right. So there's a balance that we can do with our masculinity. And I imagine you guys cover some of this stuff. And then again, here, everybody, here's the link.
Well, thank you for doing that. Well, Pete, I got to tell you, offline or off the record or in private conversations with some really
don't say it now for damn well live.
But some real kick rear end women have said to me, they're not connected only by their gender, but they said, John, you guys are on to something. Women, they might not tell you, but they're waiting for you guys to step up. They truly are. A woman doesn't want to have to be the guy, the person to slap somebody when you're sitting there when you ought to be doing it. Just saying that as an example, And so we talk about the virtues, and it's okay to be honorable, and it's okay to have courage, and it's okay to like quiche, and it's okay to be authentic. It's okay to have virtues, man. It doesn't mean that you're toxic. Doesn't mean that. That's why that whole thing is what got us started, Pete. Straight up, brother. The narrative of toxic masculinity. So guys are walking around wondering, well, that guy just insulted my woman. I'm going to be cool about it, and no, sorry you had to do that, but she probably deserved it. No, you need to stand up, grab your cojones and be a man. And a man protects his family from threats. Yeah. If it's not a mastodon and it's a news channel, turn it off and tell your kids what you just heard was total nonsense. Start thinking for yourself. Quit being intellectually lazy. My gosh, we're men.
I like it. Yeah. Well, and it's a lot of these kind of ginned up social things, like don't open a door for me. Well, of course I'm going to open a door for you. You're a person. It's not that I think you can't do it. I'm doing it to be kind. So I met this lady at the store, and I give first responders a bit of a hard time. And I'm like, yeah, you guys are always second, because there's self-response and there's the next dude in line response. And so this lady's at the store and she's trying to buy a baby pool. It's hot here in Southern California. And it's way up high on top of like the freezer section. And so one of the workers is climbing up, and it's just a plastic formed thing. And it's, you have these things, it's like 6 to 8 feet around. And I see this dude doing this, and I'm like, whoa, you can't climb a ladder and hold that thing down. There's no way your boss wants you doing that. So I go over to him and I'm like, you get it down, drop it down to me. You're not going to hurt me. That thing weighs, a pound, because it's just this thin plastic. And so he hands it. Plus it's so big. If you just move it down at all, my hands are almost 8 feet in the air. Right. So I've got this thing and I bring it down and I give it to them. And, so we worked like a team. But that kid was going to climb that ladder and bring that stupid thing down by himself. And it takes 2 hands to control that thing. Anyhow, so not my business. I don't care anymore. I'm off doing my shopping. And I come and me and this lady are almost on the same kind of route out the store. And we go out and she is driving, John, she's driving like a Toyota Tercel. It's the smallest fucking car in the world. And I'm like, hey, are you going to strap that to the top of your car? And she goes, no, I'm going to get it inside. And the poor guy who helped her get the pool down, the checker guy, he's trying to like get it into the back of her car. It does. It's just for everybody watching. This is formed plastic. It might go in there, but it'll never come out in a usable shape anymore. Like it's just no way. It doesn't belong inside of a tiny car. And so I said, oh, why don't I just throw it in the back of my truck and I'll just take it to your place. And she's like, wait, what? I'm like, yeah, you're not going to get it in your car. It doesn't fit. Can you see that? It's not going to fit. You're not going to attach it to the top. I can give you some rope and attach it to the top. She's like, no, I don't want to put it top of my car. I'm like, well, then let me just take it to your house for you, And she's like, well, I live over here. And I'm like, yeah, that's the opposite direction for me, but it's like 5 minutes to your house. And then it'll be 10 minutes to mine. It's not that big of a deal. And so she's like, you're not going to kill me, are you? And I'm like, Jesus Christ, lady. I'm just.
It's just a nicety. Come on.
Yeah. Like, don't feel threatened. I won't even get out of my truck. You can haul it out of the truck. I'm just going to take it. I don't even need to know where you live. We'll just go to wherever, somewhere close. You can drag it the rest of your. I'm trying to help you, And so I follow her to her place. She lives in a complex. And so I'm like, hey, do you want me to bring it? She's like, just here onto the walkway. And I'm like, all right. And then,
that's how they got people all scared up. They're getting people living in fear.
I know.
But you reminded me of something, another shameless shout out for somebody's book that was written 60 years ago. It's called, well, I'll tell you first, I was 18 years old, my first year in college. I'm taking all my business courses. I'm a Seminole. And the female teacher, as part of her required reading for the class, is a book called Amy Vanderbilt's Book of Etiquette. Now, it was a co-ed class, and I'm thinking to myself, come on, in a marketing class, I'm going to read Amy Vanderbilt's Book of Etiquette. So I did. I was a good trooper, good student. Made an A in that class, by the way. But that book, Amy Vanderbilt's Book of Etiquette, things that I read in that book have stuck with me for 45 years. It was one of the most influential books that I've ever read, Pete. And we're missing that. Why can't we just be the example, like you were to that woman, and just have some etiquette? And that woman was so fearful because of the things that she's been told about men, and maybe their toxicity, that she's scared for you to even offer a helping hand, which she obviously needed. The kid was going to destroy her property, but you saved the pool. And those are the kind of things that I'm talking about. People are so fearful of other people that etiquette is no longer practiced anymore. I can remember.
No, go ahead. You can remember what? Go ahead. Go with it.
But I can remember walking down sidewalks. Hey, how's it going? Hello. A simple human nicety that we learned back in the caveman days. A sign of we're friendlies.
Yeah.
And people will turn away with you. The most basic nicety of a human interaction, people ignore.
Yeah.
There's more of us than them. And I keep wanting to believe that. There's more virtuous guys in our circles of influence than there are with the guys that don't do those things. And I can say is, let's not be so overreactive. Not just to the men, but to the women too. A guy offering to help you is not going to take you home, get inside your apartment, use your intuition. Does Pete look like it? Well, all I'm saying is use your intuition. Not everybody is a dastardly psycho killer. He just wanted to help.
Right. Yeah, you're just trying to help. And not every encounter with a man is part of a Lifetime movie. You're not in a Lifetime movie. You're in real life. And you're a single mom and you need some help. It's all right. It's all right to take some help. And I guarantee you, if her situation was a little bit worse, she would be desperate for that help. And it doesn't have to be a dude. It can be anybody. So again, I recall, first responder Pete, me and my special someone, we like to be the first responders because we respond first. There's a lady and her car was broken down. Big intersection. She's in the far left turn lane. That's a big intersection, multi-turn left lane. And she's trying to jam her stupid California. We have these ridiculous gas cans here in California that are designed to save the earth. And what they do is cause you to spill more gas on the ground. So because they suck at putting gas in the car. That's what they suck at doing. And so, yes, when it's sitting inert, it doesn't vape off a lot of gas, but as soon as you try to use it to put gas in the car, game over. So she's like, rawr, rawr. And I go up to her, I'm like, hey, calm down. You need to put gas in this car? She's like, yeah. Okay, cool. Let's make sure the car starts first because she doesn't know all these things, right? And so I know how to operate one of these things because I've screened down them long enough that I can tame the gas thing. And so I override it with my power because I'm a dude, and I pour the gas into her car. And I'm like, can you get it to start? And it took a couple tries. I'm like, just pump it, let it go. And then, and it's an older car, so I think I know what I'm doing. And then she's like, I got it. And I'm like, go right to that gas station. Don't go anywhere else because you're never out of gas. And so I saved the day. She was desperate for someone to help her, because it's dangerous to be in an intersection like that. And before any kind of help, by the way, help was coming about a minute after me. You could see the fire engine coming down the street because you have someone in this bad spot. We're all desperate for help when we need it. It's just, if it comes before then and it's just a kind gesture, let it be kind. Not everybody's trying to. There just aren't enough murders for all the murders that happen on Lifetime. They're just not.
No, there isn't. And the thing too is that you just mentioned it, Pete, and it's so true. We do all need help. Not everybody. I look at people now. Everybody's got a story. You've interviewed thousands of people, and sometimes we just need to take a deep breath to find some commonality. Let's just say you like the San Francisco 49ers, and I like the one Virginia. What do they have here? The Generals, or let's just say the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. And you and I, as men, we could bump chests and come to fisticuffs over a game, a play in a game from 20 years ago. And in our blindness and in our rage, because we're such diehard fans for our team, we miss the fact that we both love the sport of American football.
Of course.
And how many times do we get misaligned because we once we get into that rage state, or that my way is the best way, and you've got to believe this, if we just were to let down our guards a little bit and be a little bit more open-minded and try to understand where that person's coming from, I guarantee it, they probably have more in common with you than not. And that's what we don't see a lot of today either. People that I've admired are unwilling to even compromise in opening their ears. Well, you're giving me some good information, John. Let me think about that for a while. And then maybe they believe it, maybe they don't. Maybe they come back offline. I just wanted to tell you that you were right, bro. I'm sorry if I gave you such a hard time. And I'm not going to say, don't you wish that would happen more often these days?
Yeah. Well, you got to be man enough to be able to read, Vanderbilt's, manners and be able
to etiquette.
Yeah. Or I said this on your show. When I think about I asked us to define what freedom is, and I'd like freedom is all about allowing someone else to be free. Of course I want to be free, but if you can't allow someone else to be free, you're taking it from somebody. And so, if your freedom is telling people that men are toxic, okay, great, you get to do that. But I also get to go do what I'm going to do. And we're way more in charge. And for whatever reason, there is a group of us that always need permission to do things. And it's like, no, you don't. You don't. Just go do it. If you're not harming someone and you're not breaking an obvious law, then go do it. You don't need permission to wear a certain hairstyle. You don't need permission to wear a certain kind of clothes. You can do whatever you want. I may not care for it, but that doesn't matter. You get to do it. And I get to live in the same world as you and be like, hey, whatever. They're saying something that's crazy. They're an anti-Semite. All right, great. I'm not going to, support your cause, but I support your right to espouse it. You get to say all the hateful, evil shit you want. The second you put that Molotov cocktail in your hand, now you're a tackling dummy. And you're going to get pounded because we have to look out for one another. Now you're stepping over the line.
That's so true, Pete. And you remember that show because we asked 137 combat veterans, if you will. I actually had one person who wasn't a combat veteran. His dad was actually a Holocaust survivor. And then Jill Stevenson, who lost her son in he died in the States, but he was wounded in action with the Ranger Battalion. I asked that question 137 times. What does freedom mean to you? And I got 137 different answers. Sure. And that was the beauty. That is the beauty of freedom, is our ability to let go and to let people live their lives as well. And you're so totally right, Pete. The minute you pick up the Molotov cocktail, the game changes. Then you become a threat, physical threat to innocent people. And that just cannot stand when we look at the laws of the universe, let alone the human laws. And that will come back to bite you every time, that level of violence. And you know what? It is horrific. The way that Gaza's been leveled But how many years does it take to push those people out that are like you said, they don't want peace? How many people does it take to be killed before you finally get the message? If they attack the Shenandoah Valley, I'd be the first one to put together a battalion of people to we call it the karmic army. Karma has a way of coming back around, and it's taken me a while. I'm not going to say I'm Johnny Saint. I'm not a saint, probably more of a broken angel, but I've learned my lessons. My life is not your life. My life is not anybody else's life, but I'm learning the lessons that I have to live to be the best person I can be. And even you giving me this time, Pete, and having this lively conversation, you're a public benefit, brother. You're allowing people to exercise their freedom of speech, and I don't think you're going to censor me. And that is very comforting. Wait, I didn't mean to say that word. I'm telling you, man, that is very comforting in a world that censors and cancels.
Yeah.
I lost a couple stations on YouTube for just telling the truth.
Yeah. No, it's a true thing, especially here on YouTube. It's very easy to limit your speech. They have a history of doing it. They've done it. They've tried to get better at it, but it's uncomfortable. And to be honest, anybody who says they're a free speech absolutist, well, that's a thing protected by a lot of force and death, right? And so we've got to respect the fact that we don't know exactly where that line is, and it's going to be different for all of us. And that's part of the sorting. But as long as we're sorting and as long as we're talking, and we don't have our fists balled up, then okay. I was had a mini interaction online today where someone's like, my neighbor is shooting squirrels and birds with a BB gun. And I'm mad as hell about it. I'm like, well, take him a 6-pack. Ask him what's going on. Go be their neighbor, fuck that person.
But that's true,
All right. Right. Exactly.
So next time you get pissed off about something, just take a deep breath.
Yeah, take a deep breath.
There's that reactionary, sometimes we choose to interact in a way that can lead to violence, and that might piss off somebody that loves, small birds. But you know what? Maybe the guy's daughter just died. Maybe he's pissed off at the world and he's taking it out with his BB gun. Who knows? And
maybe you're wrong about the BB gun thing. Maybe that's not at all what's happening. Maybe that's just your impression.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Who knows?
No one knows enough to know enough. So go talk to the person and invite them over to your house or go to their house and say, hey, I got this weird sense that you're shooting birds with a gun or whatever it is that you're going to say. Or just go for a walk. Hey, you want to go for a walk? I'm going to go for a walk and just talk and be neighbors. You're going to find out that you're a lot more alike than you think. And that when you do disagree, not that big of a deal. My buddy, Matt Ballacher, and Brad also knows him too. He says, I think it's like the 47th thing most interesting news about your politics. Everything else is way more interesting about who you are, And so let's go do that. Let's go be neighborly. Yeah. Let's be masculine. Let's be dudes. Let's go do dude shit. Sometimes dude shit is dumb shit, but that's what we like to do. We like to go blow things up and go fast and shoot guns. But that doesn't mean that we're bad people. We were
born this way, there's no excuse.
Yeah. I'll shut up and let you close the show out. But we picked up a reformer from our neighbors because they wanted out of their house. They're going in a different direction with their workout regimen. And so we finally got to go ahead. I've been waiting to move this thing for months. And my special someone's like, go get it. And I'm like, oh, I take off because I love moving heavy shit that's too big for the house. And we moved that thing in minutes and we figured it out. It was a team project. I love it. I love that kind of stuff. That's dude stuff, right? Like when you know how to move a couch, when you know how to pick up something heavy and get it out of the way and into something, that's good shit. So yeah, figure out what you do and do it hard and do what dudes do. I'm going to let you.
That's a great point. But, first of all, if you're a woman and you need help and there's a guy around, ask them for their help. They're not going to beat you up. I can assure you. In fact, they would love to be asked for help to move a couch like Pete just said. But thank you, Pete, for giving me the time. And I wanted to thank Brad. I wanted to thank you to the listeners for listening today to me ramble on about things that we feel are important to our society. Visit neomasculinity.solutions. Get a copy of the PDF handbook. If you want to put me on a stage or have me come to one of your teams, we can inspire and we can get guys and women motivated to be better, to think about things more, and then pay attention to what we're doing, because the Brain Freeze mini course, reintroduction, breaking the ice on critical thinking, is very useful. It's not going to be expensive. And then when the college course comes out, you want to pay attention to that, because that's going big time. And we'll have tools available to men and women to help you navigate this world of unreliable information, which, by the way, is doing its best to try to destroy societies and cultures all around the globe, primarily our families. So thank you for listening. We don't want to be a downer. We want everything to be above board, and we want to always be positive and show those Amy Vanderbilt etiquette moves whenever we can.
That's right. Pete. And we're still fans of Bono. God damn it.
Yeah. I was listening to him today. I love Bono, but Bono, come on, man. Tighten up, brother.
Tighten up. Tighten it up a little. We get to say that. We get to say, tighten it up. All right, everybody. I will see you all tomorrow. John, I'll see you in a second. We'll chat offline. Everybody else, this is the Break It Down show. You want to help? Best way to do it, breakitdownshow.com. Go to the PayPal link. Push that button. I don't need to buy coffee. I don't need Patreon. I just need you. You and me. $5 a month, that fair? You want to do 10? You want to do 20? Great. I'll take any part of it. I'll put that money to work within the show. I buy equipment, I travel. That's what you help me do. So I don't ask very often at the end of the show, so you're probably not watching. But if you are watching, that money is hugely helpful to me to make the show fly. So thank you so much. All right. Stand by, John.
Thank you.